Welcome back to the Detox Project. This is Dr. BJ Hardick. I am so much looking forward to this interview with Dr. David Jockers. Dr. Jockers is a good friend of mine, and he is a functional nutritionist and a corrective care chiropractor. He currently owns and operates Exodus Health Center in Kennesaw, Georgia, and runs one of the hottest natural health websites, drjockers.com. Check it out. Unbelievable information. Dr. Jockers is the author of Supercharge Your Brain, the complete guide to radically improve your mood, memory, and mindset, and the Supercharged recipe book with over 180 full-color recipes to help you take back control of your health. Dr. Jockers has developed 6 revolutionary online programs with thousands of participants. These programs include e-guides and recipe guides, meal plans, and video instructions, including the Sugar Detox, the Cancer Cleanse, Navigating the Ketogenic Diet, the Digestive Health Restoration Program, the Autoimmune Elimination Program, and the Super Brain Program. Dr. Jockers is a sought-after speaker around the country on topics including weight loss, brain health, healing leaking gut, thyroid function, natural detoxification, and disease prevention. I have personally invited Dr. Jockers onto the Detox Project so we can really specifically look at supplements, herbs, remedies that we know will benefit detoxification. So, Dr. Jockers, thank you so much for being with us today. How are you doing?
I'm doing awesome, BJ. So glad to be on this summit with you. And, the project you guys are working on, I know it's going to affect so many people and really help them improve their life and their health. So really excited for you guys to put this out.
Well, and just looking at the different types of health problems with which you help people, looking at some of the programs that you've developed, we know that this is all about getting back to the root cause. The root cause can affect different people in different ways. So that's why we've really, taken this, week-long summit to really look at, toxicity, some of the harsh chemicals that I think a lot of doctors don't like admitting are in the environment and in our foods and in medications and so forth. And, I'm excited for this interview because we can really talk about solutions for people. Because I think throughout this week, more and more people are realizing that, unfortunately, the world really just is toxic.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. In fact, Time Magazine came out many years ago with an article called The Poisoning of America. And they looked at that and they found that we have over 100,000 chemicals with very little safety data. And looking at individuals' bodies, they found that the average individual now has 700 known toxins, things that we know are toxic in our bodies, right? In our bloodstream, in our tissue. Average American, we urinate out 7 different types of pesticides every time we go to the bathroom. So it's one of those things where all of us are toxic. And the thing about toxicity is, we don't see it. Like, it's not necessarily right in front of us. It's not like, we're trying to drink rat poison or anything. It's stuff that's just ubiquitous. It's everywhere in our society today. We're breathing it in. We are eating it in a lot of our foods, whether we see it or not. We're drinking it. There's just everywhere we go, we're being exposed to it. So really, health in the 21st century is all about our ability to limit our exposure to the toxins, to adapt and detoxify effectively. And, that's a big thing. I'm sure your whole project is really all about helping educate people on how to do that. And I know doctors like myself, that's really where we spend our time with clients, is helping them just understand lifestyle strategies and then using advanced supplementation and really food as well in order to help them detox.
So my first question for you, because frankly, I think we start to recognize over time that most people are dealing with toxicity at some level. But what would be symptoms that you would look for in clients that would indicate the most pressing need for detoxification?
Yeah, the most common ones that I see are chronic headaches. That's a big one. Especially, and I know, BJ, you're a chiropractor, I'm a chiropractor. So a typical average individual that comes in with headaches, in a week or two, headaches are gone. Okay. However, somebody that has chronic toxicity, the headaches continue to linger. And whenever I see that in my clinic, I'm like, okay, this is probably a sign of nutrient deficiencies and toxicity. We've got to dive deeper. Things like chronic pain. So individuals that have chronic pain, they try to do things like stretching, massage, chiropractic, yet the pain continues. Another sign of toxicity. Issues with brain and neurology. The brain tissue, in fact, toxins, many of them will store in our fat tissue. And we know that our brain and our nervous system, the primary component is fat. And so things like brain fog or neurodevelopmental issues like ADHD or autism, different things like neurodegenerative conditions such as Parkinson's, which has a strong relationship with pesticide exposure. You have things like Alzheimer's, strong relationship with aluminum exposure and mercury as well with Alzheimer's. So other things would be like heart palpitations, hormonal imbalances, chronic fatigue that doesn't get better when somebody tries lifestyle like exercise, eating right, healthy sleep habits, stuff like that, and the fatigue just continues. Another sign of toxicity. Cancer, we know cancer comes down to really the body's inability to eliminate toxins effectively. So toxins damage DNA and cause genetic mutations. So cancer is very much related to toxicity. Other things would be bad breath. Chronic bad breath is another sign. The body really eliminates a majority of the toxins, believe it or not, through respiration. Mm-hmm. So breathing is one of the critical ways our body eliminates toxins. When we have bad breath, chronically, like we brush our teeth and 30 minutes later, breath is stinky again, it's a sign that our body's got just an elevated level of toxicity it's trying to get rid of. Digestive problems, especially constipation. If we're not moving our bowels effectively, then we are backloading toxicity and we're allowing fermentation and putrefaction to take place in our gut. So digestive problems, big one, bloating, constipation, different things like that, different conditions like irritable bowel, Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, all related to toxicity. Insomnia, so trouble sleeping at night. Basically the body is overproducing stress hormone. That's typically related to toxicity at some level. Skin problems like acne and eczema. Skin is another way that we eliminate toxins. And when our liver is backlogged and it's not able to move effectively, oftentimes we'll start to have exposures or, in a sense, an elimination process taking place in our skin. It can cause things like acne and eczema. Thyroid's very susceptible tissue to toxicity, particularly things like radiation that we're not eliminating effectively or buffering effectively. Also, heavy metals can affect thyroid. So those are big. Any sort of autoimmune disease, there's always a toxicity component. And then in general, muscle weakness, that's another sign. So if we're seeing atrophy, muscle atrophy, even though the individual is trying to exercise, they're trying to follow a healthy lifestyle, it's a sign of chronic toxicity. So, whenever I'm looking at somebody, first thing I try to do is really change around, get them on a good, healthy diet and healthy lifestyle, healthy outlook, trying to get them outside walking, moving their body, breathing better. Chiropractic care is real foundational in my program to help remove stress from their nervous system, help their body heal. And we don't see the results in several weeks. I start to think about deeper issues where the body's not able to eliminate toxins effectively, maybe some serious deficiencies that are going on. And we can start doing some more advanced testing to really get to the underlying root cause.
One thing that really strikes me when you run through that list is you often refer to a lot of conditions that linger even when people are already doing the right stuff. Don't we see that people are already trying so many of the right things, but they're just not getting the results? And that is one thing that I think is really, really unique to the detox world, because there's so much of an emphasis on how to get the right stuff in and do more of this and do more of that and get, more exercise, like you said, with things like muscle weakness. But oftentimes there's, chemical interference that just isn't being addressed. So things lingering, that's huge. And I know even in my experience too, having dealt with, severe heavy metal toxicity, when you went through that list, I had severe digestive issues. But before then, I had skin issues and insomnia. And it's kind of interesting. We look at these all as different conditions, but yet they can all root back to the same cause in many cases, especially when you do everything right, like I had. Because there are so many types of toxins out there, how would you classify the different types of toxins that people need to be concerned about?
Yeah, we look at toxins and we can classify them into two different groups. One of them is called exotoxins. That means coming from the outside in. So when we think about exotoxins, that's going to be environmental pollutants, for example, things that we're breathing, maybe household cleaning agents that we're breathing, or lawn care chemicals, or car exhaust, stuff like that we would be breathing in, or possibly like personal hygiene products such as deodorant, makeup, different types of shampoos and conditioners that we're putting on our body, and the toxins are getting in through the skin, transdermally through the skin into the bloodstream. Also things like food and drinks. So if we're drinking soda or something like that, obviously we're bringing a lot of toxins into our system when we do that. So those are all examples of exotoxins. And then other things that oftentimes are not even talked about are are radiation, so environmental radiation, as well as electromagnetic stress from things like cell phones and computers. So these are all toxins that are coming from the outside in. But then at the same time, we also have endotoxins, and these are toxins that are produced from the inside out. And we look at endotoxins, most people don't think about this, but this is really number one form of toxicity, is actually what our body's producing from the inside out. And that's going to be particularly waste products from things like bacteria, yeast, different microorganisms in our gut. They are consuming food and producing some level of toxins. In fact, the healthier our microbiome is, the better we are at detoxing. We know that good bacteria, good microorganisms in our gut, they help to eat toxins, and then they produce B vitamins, they produce enzymes, they produce all kinds of nutrients our body can utilize and our body needs. Whereas when we have a bad microbiome, when our gut bacteria and microorganisms, the balance is off, we know those microorganisms are going to eat our nutrients. So they're actually going to steal nutrients from us, and then they're going to produce toxins. And those toxins are going to cause a lot of problems. Things like lipopolysaccharides, acetaldehydes, all different types of toxins that are extraordinarily bad for our body. Ammonia is another one that can cause a lot of issues, particularly with the brain. So endotoxins definitely need to be addressed, as well as exotoxins. So taking care of our gut is probably the best way to eliminate the endotoxins, and then also making sure that we're upregulating something called glutathione, which is a master antioxidant that our body produces itself, and that we can also upregulate through food and through supplements. That will help us get rid of endotoxins that are produced by the cell. So every cell in the body is producing energy, and as a byproduct of that, they're also producing some toxins and some free radical stress. So within the cell, we need this compound called glutathione, and there's other antioxidants as well, like superoxide dismutase and catalase within the cell that help to protect the DNA and help to, in a sense, neutralize the toxins, the endotoxins produced within the cell. So take care of the gut, take care of the cells, and we're going to minimize the endotoxins, and then do our best to try to limit our exposure to exotoxins. We certainly can't, in our society, get rid of them altogether. And we don't necessarily know how much we're being exposed to at any given time. But the more that we can be in an environment where the air is cleaner, whether we have air freshener in our house, like some sort of a machine that will help clean our air, or have water filtration, so we're drinking really clean water, we're showering in clean water. We can also have different things. We can have grounding mats, for example. Like I've got a little grounding pad under my keyboard here to help neutralize electromagnetic stress while I'm sitting here on the computer. We can have, there's different EMF grounding chips that you can put on a cell phone. So there's a lot of different things that you can do to try to reduce those exotoxins. And that's really the key, is try to reduce your exposure and then minimize the buildup of endotoxins within our body.
And just to clarify on endotoxins, because I think the exotoxins are the ones that are really, really easy to focus on. They might not be easy to eliminate, but everybody kind of gets the idea that you want to eliminate those. But if I understand you correctly, and would you clarify, even a healthy person consuming healthy foods and having water filtration, all these other things, they would still produce some level of endotoxins, but their system better be strong in order to get rid of them. Is that what you're saying?
That's absolutely true. And so we're always producing endotoxins. And, BJ, you and I understand this principle, and it's important for the listeners to understand it, that actually some level of toxin exposure is healthy for your body. It actually allows your body to become stronger. We call it a hormetic stress. And this idea of hormesis is that exposure to levels of quote unquote dirt and dander or different toxins, an exposure that's, in a sense, not going to overload your system, but just challenge or prime your system, will actually allow your body to adapt and become stronger. And we say, well, it doesn't kill us, makes us stronger. So exposure to endotoxins on a daily basis, it's not something we could ever avoid. We just want to minimize it. And actually having those endotoxins can make us stronger to a degree. Same thing with exotoxins. So a mild exposure to exotoxins helps our body upregulate glutathione, for example. And so when we're exercising, we're actually going to produce a lot of quote unquote endotoxins, the toxins produced within our cell, because we're creating a lot of free radical stress. We're overstressing our system. We're breaking down tissue. We're going to have a lot more stress on our body, but our body's going to adapt. It's going to respond by upregulating the production of antioxidants within the cell. We're going to adapt to it. We're going to become stronger and more efficient. So some level of toxin exposure is actually important. But in general, in our society, we talk about minimizing exposure because we're just bombarded. And for the vast majority of people out there, they need to do everything they can to reduce exposure overall so they can adapt effectively.
So then what systems of the body need to be most vitally strengthened in order to detoxify correctly?
Yep. So I look at 5 major regions. So the first thing we're looking at is cellular detoxification. So we know every cell in the body, we have trillions of cells, and the cell has a mitochondria. And that's kind of, in a sense, that's like the little engine that produces energy. So the more stress we're under, the more we're going to need to kick out energy from the cell. And so we need to make sure that the cell is really good at producing energy. So we need to have good mitochondrial health. We also need to make sure it's good at buffering free radicals, what we call oxidative stress. So we think of oxidative stress, we think about, for example, rust, so iron rusting and things like that. So our cells will rust if we're not good at protecting them. So we want to do things like, for example, again, exercise helps with boosting glutathione, which protects the cell, and it also is good for mitochondrial health. So a good level of exercise that's appropriate to, in a sense, your body's ability to adapt, which can be different for everybody, will help with cellular detoxification. There's also a lot of different supplements we can do to support cellular detoxification, but we need to make sure the cells are healthy. So that's first step. Then I look at blood as well, blood and lymph. So we've got 2 circulatory systems. We've got our normal circulatory system, which is pumping blood throughout our body, but then we also have our lymphatic system. So we want to make sure that our blood and lymph are healthy. So things like chlorophyll can be really healthy for that, really, really good. So green vegetables, algae, different things like that, really good for blood purification. Also movement. So walking, jumping out of rebounders, really good because we've got this muscle pump, which helps, in a sense, take the toxins. So toxins will float out of the bloodstream and into the lymphatic system. And so we want to be able to pump those lymphatics and get the circulation going. So the faster we're able to get that circulation going, the faster we're able to get the toxins into the liver where they can be deactivated and then ideally removed through the urine, through our urinary system or through our gut and through defecation. So getting on a rebounder can really help. There's things that we can do such as hot and cold showers or cold water immersion, which can help create muscle pumping and shifting blood, in a sense, creating blood flow dynamics that allow the blood to pump at a higher and better level. So we actually improve our vascular tone by shifting our showers from hot to cold, for example. It's really good for blood purification.
So wait, now do you do that all in one shower?
Yeah, you can do it all in one shower. So like for myself, I'll get in, I'll make sure that the shower is warm. I'll get in and I'll soap and do the different things that I do. And then I'll do 30 seconds, real cold. I'll put it on as cold as I can, 30 seconds, sometimes a minute. And I'll just pump my muscles. Okay. So I'll just kind of flex and kind of pump my muscles. And then I'll turn it back to warm for about 30 seconds, 60 seconds. And then I'll go back to cold. And I finish cold another 30 to 60 seconds, pumping my muscles. And that's really powerful for endorphin release. So you actually feel amazing when you do this. And on top of that, it's really, really good for circulation. So
with the lymphatics.
Yeah, and lymphatic. Yeah, absolutely. Really good for lymphatics.
It kind of sounds like HIIT training or burst training, but with temperature.
That's right. It's like intervals. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's interval training of my shower. No, it sounds good. Well,
that's right.
Because I think a lot of times people, hear about things like cryotherapy, but they don't really know where or how to do it. But that's just one simple thing people can do right there to get.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that idea of cryotherapy, like getting in like a freezer or something like that, or just freezing cold water, is an awesome idea, but people don't really know how to apply it at their house. But yeah, doing a cold water shower or cold water immersion, or in a sense, cycling the shower like that, where you go hot and cold, is awesome. And anybody can do it right at their house.
Awesome.
So that's key. Liver detoxification. We know the liver is what deactivates toxins in our body. A lot of people think that the liver stores toxins. Not necessarily. If it's storing a lot of toxins, we call that fatty liver. That's actually not a healthy approach. It actually deactivates the toxins. So it takes a toxin that's in a sense, it converts it into different forms. So phase 1 liver detox converts it actually into a more, almost in a sense, a more toxic substance, but it needs to do that in order to change its solubility, get it from fat soluble to water soluble. And then phase 2 will help make it, in a sense, neutralize it. And then phase 3, in a sense, helps sweep it out of the body, right? It helps get it through the colon, gets it through the body by combining it to things like bile and getting it into our bowels and eliminating it. So liver detoxification is key. Then gut movement, right, which is basically an extension of phase 3 liver detox. We need to make sure we've got good bowel motility. One thing I'm huge on is really making sure that our food is eliminating from our system on a 24-hour basis. So yes. If, like we're doing this interview right now, it's 3 o'clock Eastern time. So anything that I ate before 3 o'clock yesterday should already be out of my system. If it's not, then it's actually creating a breeding ground and I'm producing rampant amounts of those endotoxins. So bacteria, microbes, they are breeding very quickly and they're producing a lot of toxins if that waste sits in my system. So we should be eliminating, getting everything out of our system. So that means we need to really be moving our bowels a minimum 1 to 2 times a day. For many individuals, it's going to be 3 to 4 times depending on the size of the stool and depending on how much we ate the day before. We need to make sure there's almost like this great feeling you have. And I know for me, I used to have irritable bowel syndrome and I used to struggle with constipation and now I don't. And there's this awesome feeling that I have when it's like I know I got everything out that was in my system in a sense like 12 to 18 hours, because that's really the ideal optimal zone, 12 to 18 hours. Yeah. There's this amazing feeling of clarity that I have. I don't know if you've experienced that, BJ.
You know, while we're talking about our bowel movements, I will mention that, you know, for me, when I started incorporating more intermittent fasting and really getting my meals into 2 meals per day, yep. Still the same amount of calories and good nutrient content, but I just, you know, was obviously condensing that more in like a 12 to 6 time frame, not every day of the week, but, you know, 3 to 5 days. I really felt like that really improved things. And one of the ways that I knew is I will often do activated charcoal, but I'll do like a mega dose of it, because that I can, you know, obviously when you do a mega dose of activated charcoal, your stool is black and you can see if it comes out in 12 hours. Because I don't know if there would be any other way for somebody to really tell whether or not things are coming out within, unless they're really, really just not digesting their food. You know what I mean? If they're not chewing their food and they can tell what's in their stool, I mean, activated charcoal has always done it for me. And then I can see, okay, I did that mega dose yesterday at 10 o'clock. And then by the next morning, if I have a super black stool at 8, then I know I'm good. I don't know, are there other ways for people to tell how quick they're eliminating?
Well, you may notice based on like what you're eating, like for example, if I'm eating a ton of green vegetables, my stool will be slightly green. Yeah. If I'm having like, I'll do intermittent fasting. I pretty much do it every day. And I usually have a big smoothie for lunch and it's got avocados, like that's what I had today, avocados. It's got a high quality protein powder. It's got, for me, I like to use raw grass-fed milk, but I'll also put people on things like coconut milk. I'll put a bunch of coconut oil in there. And so that's usually sustains me really all day. And then I'll have a dinner, and my dinner is usually loaded with vegetables. Right. And so there's a difference in the stool between my lunchtime stool and my dinner time stool. Like I can see the difference in the color and, you know, just the shape of it. And so I can usually tell in a sense what's being eliminated from my body. So that's one way, you know, depending on like how you're eating. You can look at that. But yeah, definitely activated charcoal. And BJ, how much, you said you take a mega dose. I was curious to wonder how many grams you're taking.
I usually do about 1.5 tablespoons just mixed in water. Yeah. And just mixed in water. Yeah.
That'll blacken your stool right there.
That's what we call a mega dose. Hey, maybe we can talk about other things.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So
but listen, people should look at this stuff. We pay so much attention to what comes in, but we never pay attention to what goes out. And how are you going to know how you're doing? So
that's right. Well, you know, I've trained my clients. My clients will literally take pictures of their stool and email them to me. So like I open my email inbox and I'm looking at like 5 different stools. Right? People's toilet bowls. So in my house, we talk about stool on a regular basis. And I've got twin babies.
Well, plus you're on double diaper duty with 2
exactly. So I'm looking at diapers, you know, on a regular basis. So moving on to our other part of bathroom talk, we're talking about kidney cleansing.
Yes.
So the kidneys, we got to get rid of stuff out of the kidneys. So we should be urinating regularly. So I'm a big fan of doing super hydration where we're drinking tons of water, the minimum of half our body weight in ounces. When I'm trying to help somebody cleanse, I usually double that. I'll have them drink twice their body weight in ounces of water throughout the day away from meals. And it makes it easier to do things like intermittent fasting when you do that, because actually the water will help satisfy you. You won't feel as hungry. You actually have more energy when you're doing that. And then you're just urinating. My patients will, they'll come to me, they'll be like, I feel a lot better, but I've got to go to the bathroom like every hour. And I'm like, thank God, because you've got to pee your way to good health. So that should be a key principle that we teach is you got to pee your way to good health. You should be in the bathroom. You should be urinating throughout the day. Now, we do want to cut it off in the evening because I want, consistent, solid sleep. However, during the daytime, I'm usually going to the bathroom, certainly every hour, sometimes every 45 minutes. And that's just a healthy response, healthy approach.
I also have to imagine that historically, when you look at historic forms of detox, that before people had access to a health food store, we just did major consumption of water. I mean, it's just the most intuitive thing, so it makes sense to me. Okay, so is there a final system? Or are those the five?
Those are the systems right there. Cool. So the cells, the blood, the gut, the liver, the kidneys, those are the key systems we're looking at there.
So let's go back to glutathione, supplements, herbs. I certainly struggle with this as well, as I'm sure you do, that we're always looking at, lifestyle first, diet first, nutrition first. At the same time, although we don't want anybody to be just going for a quick fix, I can imagine there's often a need for supplementation, because somebody is unwilling or not quite as able to change their lifestyle based on, the type of job. Maybe they're unable to drink as much water during the daytime or the pace that they're under. So, you've put together this amazing list of, supplements and herbs that people can use to, adjunct their detoxification process, boost their glutathione. Could you go through that list for me? Because I think that's really, really helpful for people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, glutathione itself is so critical. In fact, longevity science believe that the level of glutathione in our cells is predictive of how long we're going to live. And so we've got to make sure we've got optimal glutathione levels, and toxins, like we've explained, will basically reduce our glutathione because it's trying to protect our DNA. We know every cell of the body is taking 10,000 hits from free radicals every day. So it's literally a punching bag for free radicals. Glutathione helps protect against that. So supplementally, here are three things that boost glutathione. Now, we can talk about a number of things, but here are three kind of more direct ways of boosting glutathione. One is a compound called N-acetylcysteine. And so we look at glutathione. Cysteine is the rate-limiting step. So it's made out of three different amino acids. And the key amino acid here, it's glycine, glutamic acid, and then cysteine. And cysteine appears to be the rate-limiting one that, in a sense, our bodies we don't get as much of that from our diet as we get the glycine and the glutamic acid. So when we look at that, we definitely want N-acetylcysteine, and research has shown that that's really good for upregulating glutathione. So we take that in, boost glutathione. If we were to just take straight glutathione, our digestive system actually breaks it down. So N-acetylcysteine is great. There's also liposomal glutathione, and that's where basically there's these liposomes, which are, in a sense, these phospholipids that surround the glutathione molecule and help bring it. The liposomes are very similar to what a cell membrane looks like. They're able to pass through the digestive system and bring it to the cell and, in a sense, diffuse it into the cell. One caveat with that, I always tell my clients to look for a sunflower lecithin, because a lot of liposomes are made out of soy. And it's best to avoid soy due to possible GMOs and other possible issues with soy. A lot of people have soy sensitivities. So best to go with sunflower lecithin if you can find that. And then the third one is an acetylated form of glutathione, where there is an acetyl group on the glutathione, and it helps it pass through the gut and then helps it pass diffusively, where it doesn't take any cellular energy. So the enzymes aren't needed to pull the glutathione into the cell. It just passes right through into the cell, where it can, in a sense, buffer free radicals, protect DNA, protect the mitochondria from all these free radical attacks. Around the Earth, we've got a kind of a protective belt around the Earth that protects us from all the meteors and all the different things. And that's really what glutathione is in the cell. It's going to protect the cell from all these environmental stressors that are taking place. So
David,
those are 3 forms of glutathione.
You talked obviously about N-acetylcysteine, which looks at more taking up one of the precursors to your body producing its own glutathione. When you look at liposomal glutathione versus acetylated glutathione, those would be both mechanisms to get pure glutathione into the cells and not have it broken down in the digestive system. Is one better than the other, or does one work better in some people than others, or should people look at a combination?
Yeah, it's a great question. So a lot of people will talk about liposomes and using liposomal, and that's a great approach. But acetylated works just as good.
Okay.
And so for me personally, I've had good results using both. So I find that they both work good because they're really both working in a passive diffusion process where they're just passing right in and not taking cellular energy in order to get in. And N-acetylcysteine works good as well. Of course, you're going to need twice as much of the N-acetylcysteine as you would the acetylated or liposomal glutathione, just because some of that is digested, broken down, put into other components of the body, some of that cysteine.
Yeah.
Some is just not fully processed by our body. So you need more twice as much. Like, for example, dosage-wise, I'm going to recommend somewhere between 400 to 1,200 milligrams of N-acetylcysteine taken 2 to 3 times a day, okay, with or without food. Whereas liposomal glutathione, acetylated glutathione, usually you can get good results with 200 to 500 milligrams, so lower dosage. And with those, I usually try to take those away from meals just so they can pass through the system without any competition from everything else that's being digested and passing into the bloodstream.
Cool. What additional herbs and supplements would you then look at to support the other pathways and all these other aspects of detoxification?
Yeah, a couple other really good ones. I love lipoic acid, alpha lipoic acid, which has both fat and water-soluble properties, so it can pass in and out of the cell, into the bloodstream. Really good for upregulating things like coenzyme Q10 and protecting mitochondrial function. Really good for blood sugar balance, helps with neurons. So people that are having neurodegenerative disorders or neuropathy, blood sugar, so diabetes, alpha lipoic acid, just really, really good. Also good for detox. Milk thistle. Milk thistle is awesome. It's probably one of the best herbs. Really, really good for liver and really good for helping to repair the gut, believe it or not, even though it's not marketed for that. It's usually marketed more for liver, but it's actually amazing for the gut, really good for stomach, right? So individuals that are dealing with ulcers, whether it's an intestinal, like a duodenal ulcer, or a stomach ulcer, milk thistle is great for that, colitis. So really, really good for detox. Also, milk thistle is great at helping our body to react to radiation as well. All of us are under radiation. The more that you travel, for example, go up and fly, the more radiation you're going to be exposed to. The more you use your cell phone, the more radiation you're exposed to. So milk thistle is great for that. So I'm a big fan of that. I also like Chlorella and Spirulina. Both of those are fantastic. Really good sources of chlorophyll and different compounds that help to sweep out pesticides and herbicides and all different types of toxins. Chlorella is probably better when it comes from a detoxification standpoint than Spirulina. It's got this active compound called sporopollenin, if I say it right, sporopollenin, which is really good at binding to major chemicals and pulling them right out of our body. So Chlorella is awesome for detox. So I like to use that. I'll usually take like a greens powder or even just a straight Chlorella powder, Spirulina powder, put that in my shakes or put it in water and drink that throughout the day. Great way to continue the detox process throughout the day. And,
I also love the Chlorella that you can get just in drops and add it to just your glasses of water as well. And, the water kind of tastes the same, but it's green. It's a little bit of hint of green, and it's good to kind of trickle it in that way too.
Yeah, fantastic. And then bitter herbs as well.
Okay.
The last thing is bitter herbs. We know bitter, I always tell my clients, bitter is good for the liver. So bitter herbs, your milk thistle is a bitter herb, for example. Also things like cilantro, parsley, dandelion. These are all bitter herbs, and they're really, really good for stomach acid production, bile. Bile is a key part of the detoxification process, so really good for bile release, really good for pancreatic enzymes. It's really good for helping sweep toxins out of our body.
if somebody just, when I mention cilantro and parsley and dandelion in particular to some people just start gagging even before we give it to them. So is it all right when these bitter herbs come in the form of a greens powder and they're with other flavors as well? Are they just as effective if they're kind of hidden beneath other flavors?
Yeah, I think using a greens powder with a number of those things is great. You can also take them in supplement form. Yeah. I think that's fantastic. I'm always a fan of doing food first.
Yeah.
I think that's just a good foundational philosophy.
Yeah.
So if we're able to juice these things, like I'll put parsley on our salads. So my wife and I will put parsley. We love parsley. We put that on our salads.
Yeah.
You can put dandelion. In fact, as long as you're not spraying your yard with toxic chemicals, you can go out. You might have dandelions growing in your backyard. You can actually go and grab those and use those. My mom did that for us growing up. My mom's a naturopath, so she would just pick stuff out of the garden. She'd pick stuff out of the yard. And it was these bitter herbs that are amazing for digestive process and amazing for detox. So you can add those in. You can do greens juices. But absolutely, for the busy American that's just not interested in the flavor of a bitter herb, do a greens powder or do some sort of a quality supplement like a milk thistle supplement.
That's awesome. Can we talk about minerals? What minerals would be needed for proper detox?
Yeah, 3 key minerals I look at. One is magnesium. And we have a huge deficiency of magnesium for a number of reasons. If we have high heavy metals, heavy metals are going to compete with magnesium. So heavy metals are going to disrupt our body's ability to absorb and utilize magnesium. Also blood sugar imbalances. We have an epidemic of that in America with the typical modern American diet. So whenever we have blood sugar imbalances and we create some level of insulin resistance, then we're not going to be able to, insulin actually helps get magnesium in the cells. So we're not actually going to be able to utilize magnesium effectively. So that's a really, really big factor. And then stress, the more stress we're under, mental, emotional stress, chemical stressors, all the toxins that we're being hit with, that's going to deplete our magnesium levels as well. So magnesium is one that I love. I personally use a lot of magnesium throughout the day, and I'm a big fan of using magnesium with a majority of my clients. And pretty much everybody comes back telling me they feel great. They feel so much better, more mentally alert using magnesium, less pain in their body, more frequent, in a sense, better bowel activity. So just like we were talking about earlier. So magnesium's huge. 2 other ones, zinc. Zinc is really, really critical. Okay, so that's another one I'll supplement often. We're typically very deficient in zinc. That's huge when it comes to heavy metal toxicity, very important for reducing autoimmunity, very important for men with low testosterone, yes. Zinc levels. And zinc is also key for good estrogen detoxification. So women with estrogen dominance, zinc can be a life-saving supplement. It's really one of those inexpensive supplements you can get as well as a good quality zinc. And then selenium. Selenium is super key for glutathione production. And also on top of that, really, really key for thyroid. So whenever somebody has Hashimoto's or Graves' disease, some sort of autoimmune thyroid, or if they have thyroid nodules, for example, I'm always thinking selenium first, right? Selenium is one of the big keys I look at because selenium helps recycle the hydrogen peroxide that's produced during the process of making thyroid hormone. And if that hydrogen peroxide is not recycled, then you end up burning the thyroid, which over time can develop into nodules and destruction of the tissue. So selenium is critical, also really good for binding mercury in the bloodstream. So it doesn't kick mercury out of the fat cells, but it will bind to it in the bloodstream. And so I know we've heard a lot about fish and mercury, and we definitely need to be aware of that. Like we want to avoid higher mercury fish like swordfish, the ones that are really high in the food chain. But if we get quality fish like wild Alaskan salmon or sardines, one that's lower in mercury, it's also going to have a lot of selenium with it. And that selenium coming into our system will help our body buffer any sort of mercury we're taking in from the fish. So that's key. Yeah, and then
the cleaner the fish will find less mercury but more selenium.
That's right.
That's cool.
Yeah, exactly. So the more algae, right, that the fish is eating, algae is rich in selenium. The more algae the fish is eating, the more selenium. And you look at like wild-caught salmon, and these animals, I mean, they literally swim upstream against the rapids, and they're able to jump 10, 12 feet out of the water. They have incredible strength, and that's due to omega-3 fatty acids that they're rich in, astaxanthin, powerful antioxidant, selenium, they've got zinc. So they've got a lot of these compounds that we talked about, which allow their cells, their mitochondria, to produce rampant amounts of energy to give them this ridiculous amount of strength to be able to jump out of the water and swim upstream against the rapids. That's the kind of food we want to put in our body because that's going to help support our body and give us greater strength and energy and help us detoxify more effectively. So, and one last caveat with the fish, if I'm having fish, I'll also like to throw in a little bit of bitter herb, just kind of to protect. So cilantro, maybe some parsley, just in case, because you never fully know. Maybe that fish had a little bit more, mercury or heavy metals, or possibly, we get a lot of people talking about nuclear radiation in our seafood. So especially if it's Pacific caught. So getting some of those bitter herbs, right, will help with protecting our body from any sort of fallout from Fukushima or any other nuclear radiation that may possibly be contaminating our seafood.
This has been an awesome list. I know our audience is going to be loving this. Just, before we go, just give us a typical day. Give us a typical day for someone looking to do an everyday daily detox, a daily cleanse, take care of themselves, but they're still keeping up with a busy lifestyle and some of the demands that exist, whether it's with family or work or whatnot.
Yep. So here's how I do it, because I work a ton of hours and I've got twin baby boys, a family to take care of, and 2 businesses. So what do? I wake up in the morning and I make sure I'm doing deep breathing and really focusing on gratitude. So oftentimes, especially with my babies waking me up in the middle of the night, when I do wake up at this period of time in my life, I'm not always happy to wake up. So I try to cleanse my mind first. So gratitude, happiness, just really focusing on joy. And then I'll just drink a ton of water. So usually I'll drink 16 ounces of water. Actually, I'm sorry, before I even do that, I'll do oil pulling. So I'll put coconut oil in my mouth, swish it around for about 10 minutes, oil pull, spit that out. Then I'll start to super hydrate my system. So I drink a ton of water. I'll also like to do diluted bone broth. So you can certainly make your own bone broth. I just buy organic free-range bone broth, which is great, loaded with minerals, tastes good. I'll dilute it down with hot water. So I've got because we keep our house real cool. So I'll go ahead and it's like I've got a hot beverage that's rich in minerals and super supportive to my gut. So I'm drinking that. And I'll usually drink about 32 ounces of that in the first hour or two, right? So I probably drank 48 ounces in the first hour to hour and a half of that I've woken up. And during that period of time, I'll usually move my bowels once, if not twice, and urinated at least twice, obviously, to get all this stuff out. It's a great way to get my day started. And I feel so energized. I feel lighter. I feel more energized. I feel great. So then that's a great time to go ahead and exercise. Okay. I'm a big fan of exercise in the morning. So I'll exercise, whether it's doing high intensity sprints or some weight training. My workouts are usually anywhere between 15 minutes to 25 minutes, high intensity, get a good high quality workout. Then I'll do the hot and cold shower. I do a quick shower, but I'm ranging the hot and cold, flexing my muscles, really getting that lymphatic system, blood flow, pumping throughout my system. Then I'll go ahead, drink more water, kind of get going with my day. And then for lunch, that's usually my first meal. Very rarely do I eat breakfast. It's usually, if I do, it's usually only like a social type of thing with my family. So then typical day, my lunch is going to be some sort of, I like liquid nutrition throughout the day. So I'll do a big shake where I'll put 2 avocados in there. I'll put 2 tablespoons of coconut oil. I'll use some raw grass-fed milk or coconut milk. I'm using bone broth protein powder. So I put that in there, which is, again, really good for detox. A lot of glycine in there for liver detox. So I put that in, blend it up, comes out, it tastes amazing. I drink that. And avocados, believe it or not, tons of good fiber in there. So 1 avocado has as much fiber as 2 bowls of oatmeal. Most people don't realize that. So avocados provide good fiber, which helps with the bowel motility. So then usually after lunch, I usually have to go to the bathroom. So usually I'm having another bowel movement, kind of clearing everything out. And then oftentimes I'll take a power nap. So 15 to 20-minute nap. And it's, in a sense, I'm not really sleeping usually. It's more of like a meditation. And I'm really focusing on deep breathing during that period of time. Really helps relax me, reset me. Then I get up, I drink a magnesium drink. And it's a type of magnesium that crosses the blood-brain barrier. It's like, man, all of a sudden I feel super sharp after that. And then I go on, I've got a busy afternoon. And then a healthy meal for dinner, usually lots of vegetables, healthy meat cooked in coconut oil, and lots of, we'll put like grass-fed butter on our vegetables and If we have a salad, it's got tons of colors. We use bell peppers and all kinds of stuff like that. I try to get a lot of colors into my diet. I may even munch on a few berries. And then after dinner, one of my favorite drinks is coconut water kefir, Kavita coconut water kefir, which is really good for stomach acid, really good for overall digestive enzymes. So usually I'll wait about a half hour to an hour after I finish dinner, and then I'll start sipping on some Kavita to, again, help stimulate more enzyme production in my system. And sometimes I'll drink some of that before I eat as well. If I have time, I'll drink some of that while I'm making dinner or waiting for dinner. Really good for helping stimulate digestion, so I have optimal digestion. And I always make sure I take some deep breaths before I eat my big meal, my dinner, because I want to be in a relaxed mode so my body can produce the adequate amounts of stomach acid, digestive enzymes, so I can really digest that meal effectively. You know, in our society, we eat so fast and on the go. That's a setup for more endotoxin production. So I want to relax my body before I start eating. I don't want to just dig in because I'm hungry. So I relax my body. Oftentimes I'll supplement with enzymes. If I feel like I am more stressed, about midway or at the end of the meal, I'll take a little bit of hydrochloric acid supplementation as well to help with stomach acid, to help break down the protein more effectively and help stimulate bile release. So I really try to be as attentive as possible at maximizing my digestive system, so I produce less endotoxins, so I'm able to absorb the nutrients more effectively and sweep the food out, get better bowel motility to get all the waste products out of my system the next day. And so then at night, I try, and it doesn't always work out like this, but I would say probably 5 days out of the week, my curfew for EMFs, in a sense, for being on my computer or watching TV or something like that, my electronic curfew is 9 p.m. And then I'll just usually spend time with my wife, just relaxing, try to dim the lights. You know, we'll just have fun, have conversation. And then I'm usually sleeping by 10:30, somewhere in that time frame. And that's really good. I mean, the more sleep we get before midnight, the better off we're going to be. It's really in tune with our circadian rhythm. And it's always a good idea to have your electronics off at least a half hour before you're attempting to go to sleep. It's really, really good habit to have.
Dr. David Jockers, this has been an incredible list and an incredible resource. I'm sure for our audience, I will encourage you all to make sure you are downloading and purchasing this project for Dr. Jockers' information, if nothing else, because that was just a great list on all the basics that we can do, and you really helped to clarify a lot of the misconceptions about detox as well. You know, a couple of the keynotes that I took was when you talked about, you know, hormetic stress and hormesis. You know, that the fact that your body is designed to get stronger when it's competing with some of those endotoxins that your body produces. So don't forget, this is all about a bigger picture, and actually your body can get stronger when it has to get up against some of this stuff. Dr. Jockers talked about a couple of, you know, key supplements and foods that we don't think about quite as often. Bone broth in the morning, dandelion from his mom's garden, which, you know, we're all trying to get these out of our grass. Well, maybe one way to do it is get it in our food. Chlorophyll, even coconut water kefir. These are really different things that people can apply. Another really, really unique practice is the hot and cold shower. Dr. Jockers also talked about a grounding mat underneath the keyboard and all the electronics. And also we talked about, you know, things like magnesium and zinc and selenium, and those 3 awesome ways to make sure you're increasing your levels of glutathione. So I will encourage you, if you're looking for more information, make sure you do follow Dr. Jockers on drjockers.com, plus all of the great info that he has provided in this summit. So David, thank you so much for being with us today.